Am I the a-hole for exploding after my parents said I'd spend my life caring for my disabled sister? The title makes me sound horrible, but hear me out. My sister is severely autistic. She requires attention almost 24/7 and cannot be left alone. She is nonverbal and cannot take care of herself at all. Despite the fact that she is only 12, she is extremely destructive and violent and destroys anything she gets her hands on. I hate her. That should be wrong to say, but it doesn't feel like it. I was only 6 years old when she was born, and since then I've never solely had my parents' attention. Before she came along, I remember having bedtime stories, weekend trips to the park, and parents who actually looked at me when I spoke. The moment they brought her home from the hospital, all of that vanished. Even since I can remember, the world has revolved around her. Every schedule, every meal, every conversation, and every single cent my parents earned went into her therapies, her specialized equipment, or repairing the damage she constantly caused. I was moved out of my room into the basement at 7 because she needed to be in the room next to my parents. I remember the day vividly. My father came into my bedroom with a stack of flattened cardboard boxes and told me I needed to pack up everything. I cried, begging him to let me stay upstairs because the basement was cold, dark, and smelled like concrete and dampness. He didn't even look at me, he just kept folding boxes and said that she needed the space close to them because she would wake up screaming in the middle of the night. My cozy room, which had windows that let the morning sun in, was stripped bare in a single afternoon. I was left downstairs in a corner of the basement, listening to the pipes rattle and hearing her footsteps pacing directly above my head. All of my toys as a child were destroyed by her, and my parents simply ignored me when I complained. I used to try to keep my things on high shelves, but she would climb on chairs or just pull the entire shelving unit down, smashing whatever was on it. I had a Lego set that I spent 3 weeks meticulously building, hiding it under my bed downstairs, but she wandered down one afternoon while the basement door was left unlatched. When I came home, it was crushed into unfixable pieces, and some parts were chewed on. When I ran to my mother, crying and showing her the broken plastic, she just sighed, wiped my sister's face, and told me that I was older and needed to be more understanding. She said they couldn't afford to buy me another one anyway because of my sister's medical bills. My losses were always treated like minor inconveniences, while her destructive outbursts were treated as unavoidable facts of life. Even when I was 14 and she destroyed a Mac my school gave me, I was in the wrong. The laptop was property of the school district, issued to me for my high school honors classes. I was working on a major history project at the kitchen table because the basement light bulb had burned out and my parents hadn't replaced it yet. I stood up to get a glass of water from the fridge, which was barely 5 feet away. In those 10 seconds, she grabbed the screen and slammed it backward until the hinges snapped completely off and the LCD screen bled black ink. I screamed out of pure panic because I knew the school would charge my parents a massive replacement fee. My dad ran into the kitchen, saw the shattered laptop, and immediately turned on me. He yelled at me for leaving expensive electronics within her reach, telling me that I knew better and that I was irresponsible. I stood there, completely stunned, realization washing over me that even when she broke the law or school property, the blame would always be shifted onto my shoulders. Along with this, I am expected to take care of her and drop everything I do for her. My life is not my own. I have to monitor her meals, make sure she doesn't swallow random objects, and clean up after her when she throws food or worse across the room. I can never make plans with friends because my parents expect me to be there if they need me to take care of her. If a friend asks me to come over after school, my immediate response can never be a simple yes. I always have to check with my parents, and 9 times out of 10, the answer is a harsh rejection because they have an appointment, or they are too exhausted, or they just want to sit down without having to watch her. My social life became non-existent. I stopped getting invited to birthday parties, sleepovers, or casual hangouts because everyone knew I would just end up canceling at the last minute. Even when I do somehow get time to myself, I am required to leave if they need me. If I do not, then I am punished. My boundaries mean absolutely nothing to them. The recent example of this is when I went to see the new Spider-Man movie. I had saved up my own money for the ticket and snacks, and I told my parents 2 weeks in advance that I was going. They reluctantly agreed. Once I got into the theater, I knew that if my phone vibrated, it would ruin the experience, and since it was a crowded room, I turned my phone completely off to be respectful to the other moviegoers. It was 2 hours of pure bliss where I didn't have to think about my home life. But the moment the credits rolled and I powered my phone back on, my screen lit up with 15 missed calls and a barrage of furious text messages. When I walked through the front door, my parents were waiting for me in the hallway. They didn't ask how the movie was. Instead, they screamed at me for being selfish, claiming that my sister had a massive meltdown and they needed me to help restrain her and clean up the bathroom. Because I was unreachable for those 2 hours, I was grounded for a month, meaning I was locked into an even tighter cycle of caretaking with zero escape. It seems as if I am nothing more than a slave to them, and anything involving her simply overshadows me. My existence is validated only by how much labor I can provide to make their lives easier. This last week I was chosen to give a speech at a school event. It was a huge milestone for me. I had won a regional academic recognition, and I was tasked with presenting my essay in front of the faculty, students, and parents. I was so excited, and my parents promised to be there. For days leading up to the event, I rehearsed in front of the mirror in the basement, wanting to make them proud. I kept asking them if they had their clothes ready, and they kept reassuring me that they wouldn't miss it for the world. On the evening of the event, I stood backstage, peeking through the heavy curtains, scanning the rows of seats. The auditorium filled up completely. I saw my peers sitting with their families, smiling and taking pictures. My speech came and went. I stood at the podium, delivered my lines perfectly, and received a loud round of applause. But the 2 seats I had reserved in the front row remained completely empty. When I got home that night, the house was chaotic as usual. My parents never showed and claimed it was because of my sister. My mom didn't even look up from the couch where she was trying to calm her down, just mumbled that my sister had started biting herself right before they were supposed to leave, so they couldn't put her in the car. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of my achievement, and no regret in their voices. Anytime anything like this happens for me, they are too busy with her. My graduations, my awards, my birthdays, they are all treated as secondary events that can be cancelled at a moment's notice if my sister has a bad day. I've held this in for so long, and it finally spilled out today. While talking about colleges with my father, he joked that I should get a degree that pays well so when they're gone I can take care of my sister. He laughed as he said it, as if it were a light-hearted passing comment about our future. But to me, it felt like a heavy, suffocating blanket being thrown over my entire life. In that single sentence, he stripped away all my dreams of moving away, going to a university, finding a career I love, and having a life of my own. He was casually telling me that my entire future was already decided, that my freedom was an illusion, and that I was born to be a permanent, unpaid guardian. I don't know why, but this caused me to break down. I cried and screamed about how it is always about her. All the years of isolation in the basement, the broken belongings, the missed school events, and the constant exploitation just erupted out of me all at once. I shouted that I'm nothing more than a caretaker to them, that they always make it about her, and that I'm expected to be her slave for the rest of my life. My dad looked shocked, his jaw dropping as I let out years of built-up resentment, my voice cracking and tears streaming down my face. I didn't let him speak, I just turned around and ran. I've locked myself in my room since then, and my parents have not come to check on me. The silence from the rest of the house is deafening, and the weight of what I said is sitting heavily in my chest. Am I the asshole here? Edit/update kinda? Wow, thank you for all the support and love that you guys have given me. I never expected this post to reach the popularity it did. Thank you all. After thinking about it for these past hours, you are right that I don't despise my sister. It's not her fault that she was born the way she is. My parents came to talk to me a while after my breakdown, but I was unable to bring myself to talk to them and only cried and asked them to leave. They have made arrangements with my grandfather for me to stay with him for the time being, and am getting ready to go to his house. My parents want to talk to me, but we have decided it's best I leave for now to have some space and time to collect myself. We will be sitting down and talking later this week about this issue. Thank you all again for the love and support through this. I'll send an update your guys' way later this week if people are interested. Update. I'm back like I said I would be. My original post got a lot of attention, and seeing as you guys seem interested, here's my update. Well, since that day I made the post, I've been staying with my grandfather. The week's been honestly a huge change for me, for better and for worse, but I'll try to run it down. The first night at my grandpa's house felt strange. Not bad, just strange. I don't think I realized how tense I constantly was at home until I wasn't there anymore. My grandfather lives alone, and his house is quiet in a way I'm not used to. No screaming, no things crashing in another room, no sudden yelling because my sister got into something dangerous. I slept almost 12 hours the first night without waking up once. My grandpa joked the next morning that he thought I had died because I didn't come downstairs until noon. After that, I sat down with him and explained everything. Not just the breakdown, but all of it. The babysitting, missing out on things, being punished for not answering my phone, losing my room, my stuff getting destroyed, my parents making me leave friends or school events to help them, everything. I think he expected me to exaggerate because at first he kept asking questions like he thought there had to be another side to it. But the longer we talked, the quieter he got. When I told him about my parents joking that my future was basically supposed to revolve around taking care of my sister, he looked genuinely sick. That conversation ended up lasting almost 3 hours. He explained a lot of things that I had never been told before. Apparently my sister had been evaluated multiple times over the years, and professionals had recommended specialized care and outside assistance because of how severe her condition was and because she had become violent. My parents either ignored the recommendations or stopped following through after a short time. My grandfather said that while helping out sometimes as family is normal, what my parents had me doing wasn't normal at all, especially considering my age and my sister's behavior. I didn't even know some of the incidents with my sister had been discussed with doctors. I thought my parents treated it like it was just regular sibling stuff. My grandfather knew about broken furniture and a few incidents where my sister had hurt herself during meltdowns, but he didn't know they had me physically restraining her sometimes or staying home alone with her for hours. When I mentioned that, he got angry in a way I'd never seen before. Not yelling, just quiet and furious. He told me I wasn't going back over there alone. The next few days were weird because suddenly everyone in my extended family seemed to know something was wrong. My aunt came by with food one afternoon and ended up sitting with me outside for almost an hour just talking about random things. My uncle took me out to lunch one day and spent half the time trying to convince me to apply to colleges out of state. My cousins started texting me asking if I wanted to hang out. It honestly felt awkward at first because I wasn't used to people asking me what I wanted to do. At some point during the week I learned that my parents had been accepting money from family members for years under the excuse that it was helping pay for a professional caretaker for my sister. There was no caretaker. Sometimes my mom would have a friend come over for a couple hours, but most of the responsibility stayed with them or got dumped onto me. That caused a huge fight in the family. My aunt apparently found out before I did and called my dad screaming at him over the phone. My grandfather wouldn't tell me every detail because he said I didn't need to be dragged into adult arguments, but I overheard enough to know things got ugly. One of my uncles threatened to report them after hearing that they knowingly left me alone with my sister despite being told not to. I don't know if anything will actually happen from that, but the atmosphere around the family changed fast. People stopped defending my parents once the truth started coming out. At the same time, part of me still felt guilty. I know a lot of people in the comments were angry at my parents, and I understand why, but they're still my parents. My dad taught me how to ride a bike. My mom used to stay up with me when I got sick as a kid. There were good moments somewhere in all of this. That's part of what made the whole thing harder. It would have been easier if they had just been terrible all the time. My grandpa tried not to push me too hard about any of it. Mostly he just focused on getting me out of the house and doing normal things. He gave me money to go see another movie with friends and laughed when I asked if I needed to keep my phone on. One night he drove me to a friend's house himself because he didn't trust my parents not to suddenly demand I come home. Another day he helped me look at colleges online for almost 2 hours. I don't even think he understood half the websites we were on, but he sat there anyway acting interested. It sounds stupid, but little things kept catching me off guard. The fact that nobody interrupted dinner. The fact that I could close my bedroom door without listening for yelling from downstairs. The fact that if I left the house, I didn't spend the entire time worried my phone would blow up. By the time Saturday came around, I was nervous about talking to my parents again. My grandfather and uncle went with me like they promised they would. The entire drive over there felt awful. I kept thinking maybe things would calm down and we'd actually talk things through. I don't know why I expected that after everything, but I did. The second I walked into the house I knew it wasn't going to go well. My mom looked exhausted. My dad barely looked at me. My sister was upstairs making noise in her room while everyone sat around the kitchen table pretending this was some normal family conversation. At first my grandfather tried to keep things calm. He explained why he was concerned and brought up the things I had told him. My dad immediately got defensive. He said family takes care of family and that people who didn't live with a disabled child had no idea what it was like. My grandfather agreed that it was difficult, but pointed out that dumping responsibility onto your other child wasn't a solution. That turned into an argument almost immediately. My parents admitted they stopped pursuing professional help consistently because it was expensive and difficult. My aunt's money had been helping cover bills instead. When my grandfather asked why they lied about using it for a caretaker, my dad avoided the question completely. My mom mostly sat there crying quietly while my dad talked over everyone. Then the conversation shifted toward me. My father started saying that I was old enough to help out and that everything they did was for the family. He brought up how hard my sister's condition had made their lives and said I should have been more understanding instead of acting resentful. At one point he actually said, "You were put here to help your sister," like that explained everything. That was the moment everything fell apart. I asked him if he even heard himself. I asked if he ever thought about what any of this did to me. I brought up missing school events, not being allowed to have a life, getting punished for wanting basic freedom, all of it. He kept trying to justify it by talking about my sister needing us. Not once during that conversation did either of my parents apologize. Even when my grandfather asked directly if they understood how unfair things had become for me, my dad kept circling back to how difficult their lives were. Eventually my uncle snapped and told him that having a disabled child didn't excuse treating his other kid like unpaid labor. The meeting ended badly. Worse than badly, honestly. By the time we left, my grandfather had already decided I wasn't going back there permanently. My parents didn't fight it as much as I expected. My mom cried. My dad mostly looked angry. The ride back to my grandpa's house was quiet. That night my uncle sat with me outside for a while and basically told me that none of this was my responsibility anymore. He said if I wanted to leave the state after graduation, he'd help me figure it out. My aunt called later and told me the money she'd been sending my dad would go into an account for me instead. Apparently she'd already cut him off completely. Since then my parents have called a couple times. Neither conversation really went anywhere. My mom asked when I was coming home. My dad asked if I was seriously planning to throw away the family over this. Neither one actually addressed what happened. Today ended up being the final step. My grandfather and uncle helped me move my things out of the house. I expected it to be dramatic, but honestly it felt worse because it wasn't. My dad left shortly after we arrived and took my sister with him. I don't know if he wanted to avoid another argument or if he just couldn't deal with watching me leave. My mom stayed the whole time but barely spoke. She followed us around while we packed boxes and loaded furniture into my grandpa's truck. Every now and then she'd ask if I really needed something or point out things I forgot in drawers. Going through my room felt weird because it didn't even feel like my room anymore. Half the stuff in there had already been damaged over the years. A few things I thought I'd lost were shoved into closets or storage bins. My uncle found one of my old game system's missing pieces because my sister had apparently gotten to it years ago. I grabbed everything important I could think of. Clothes, school stuff, pictures, my laptop, documents, medical records, birth certificate, social security card, all of it. My grandfather kept reminding me to double-check because he didn't want me needing to come back later. The whole time my mom hovered nearby looking like she wanted to say something but couldn't figure out how. Right before we left, she finally broke down. She hugged me and told me she loved me and that she was going to miss me. I hugged her back because despite everything, she's still my mom. I don't know if she expected me to say more than goodbye, but that's all I had in me. After a week of silence, after all the excuses and everything that happened, those were the first honest words she'd really said to me. I still don't know what to think about that. Right now I'm sitting in my grandfather's house surrounded by boxes and trying to process the fact that I don't live with my parents anymore. Part of me feels relieved. Another part feels awful. I don't think those feelings cancel each other out. What I do know now is that I don't hate my sister. None of this is her fault. She didn't choose any of this any more than I did. Looking back, I think I spent years directing anger at the easiest target because I couldn't direct it where it actually belonged. I love my sister. I honestly do. I just can't keep sacrificing my entire life because my parents decided that's what my role was supposed to be. Maybe someday things with my parents can heal. Maybe they can't. I don't know yet. For now I'm staying with my grandfather, finishing high school, and figuring out what comes next. That's about all I can handle at the moment. So, there's my update. Thanks again for the support my original post got. I really appreciate everyone who took the time to comment or show me support. Thank you. Edit. Thank you all so much. I wish I could respond to every single one of you, but my lunch only lasts so long. I'll update tonight how the move out went, but until then, thank you all. I want to say that your support has been amazing and your kindness means more to me than anyone could ever imagine.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Daily Tales Update.